Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of About Abroad, where it's my job to introduce you to people who have built amazing lives for themselves in various foreign corners of the globe. We're talking with expats and thought leaders about moving abroad, remote work, visas, and all the fun and practical knowledge that you need to know to follow in their footsteps. If you've ever dreamed of making a life for yourself overseas, maybe working remotely or embracing long-term travel, retiring or studying abroad, or even just taking a peek inside life beyond your borders, you've landed in the right place. My guest today is Erkan Munishi, and he is joining me as one of the leading architects, we'll call him, behind the scenes of the digital nomad visas that all of these countries are building, competing for digital nomads to come and call their country home. They have to be built by somebody. Somebody's doing all the research and advocating for the way that they should be structured, and Erkan is one of the key people in that conversation for multiple countries. So we talk a little bit about how those visas come to be and what the countries are looking for as they're building them, but then also, most importantly for you, what you need to know if you're interested in obtaining one of these, particularly in Albania, Greece, and Dubai. We touch on those three specifically, but we also tie this into his history, his background as a refugee from war-torn Kosovo, and how that transitioned him into a world of living in the US and then eventually becoming a digital nomad. And now he is the founder of the Digital Nomad Expo and the Digital Nomad Association in the US. So he has become a key figure in this conversation. He's a very busy guy. I was super appreciative of him sharing the time with us today and all of his insights from behind the curtain of the infrastructure of all this digital nomad conversation that's happening. So thank you to Erkan for joining us. I think you all will enjoy this one. Please help me in welcoming Erkan to About Abroad. Man, I can't believe you stayed up so late to do this call. I feel extremely honored, to be honest.
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. You know, who wouldn't stay for Chase? Come on.
Oh man, that is really, really kind of you, and I'm really looking forward to this one. It's gonna be a lot of fun. There's so many things we can touch on, and I think it's funny. Like, you know, when I was doing a little bit of background research on your story and looking at all the things you're putting out there, I'm thinking, like, how does this guy do it all? Because you're obviously got your hands in a lot of different things. And now I know, because it's like midnight there where you are and 1 o'clock in the morning. What time is it?
It's exactly 12:17 a.m. here. So it's another regular night for me, honestly. Like, usually it's the time when I have my Europe meetings. So
gotcha. Okay, cool. Well, you know, I was thinking, actually, it's kind of funny. Like, you're there in the US. I'm an American living over here in Europe, and the show's called About Abroad. And so someone might be like, what are two Americans doing talking to each other on an episode about abroad? But I think there's so much depth to your background. A lot of things I actually have no idea. I mean, I've been following your work for some time now, but I don't know a lot about your history, except that you're originally from another place, and I think that probably ties in pretty. It's probably pretty connected to the work that you're doing day to day in the digital nomad world and the remote work world and such. So I wondered if you could just shed a little bit of background light on that for us. Like, tell us a little bit about where you're from and where you are now and kind of how that all, weaves together.
Absolutely. So, well, basically, I mean, it really is something that relates to the current situation, unfortunately, because I'm originally from Kosovo, which now you can say a post-war country, but, it went through a very rough war in 1990s. And that's why I totally relate, and I feel very sad about especially the kids that are, growing up at this time there, and all that struggle. Actually, it makes you stronger, but unfortunately, it's one of those things that you'd rather not go through, And so basically, I'm from Kosovo originally, and went through the whole process of being a refugee, and that's why that process has built my personality in many ways, professionally and personally. And then I moved to the United States. By going through the whole process of being a refugee and all the struggle, I realized, I mean, today, actually, I was just listening to a podcast about history and was doing a definition of how people see freedom. And, throughout the centuries, freedom was defined differently. And looking at it right now, to me, freedom is the most important part of my life. And that really connects deeply with the digital nomad lifestyle and remote work. And that's where I all got started, from the freedom concept into being free of your, wherever you want to be and work was as one. And then secondly, it's always been the concept of being able to help the others go remote as well, because I'm going through that struggle. You're the only one who feels that. So basically that's where my background connects into the digital nomad and remote work.
It's interesting, isn't it? Like a lot of us look at being able to travel, expat life, digital nomadism, all these things, exploring the world and such is like such a, we think about it as such an exciting privilege. And I think most of us are pretty aware of that. We're like, it's a privilege. Like it's super fortunate to be able to call a different country home just because you choose to, or be able to go spend 6 months in Mexico and hang out on the beach and, work from there. Like we are mostly aware that's a relatively new thing, but also, a privileged thing and something that's not accessible to many people throughout the world. But I think someone coming from your vantage point has a very unique perspective because you having been a refugee, having to escape a place that's going through a horrible crisis and seeing what mobility and flexibility and now what would be access to work. I mean, think about all the people who are accessing work remotely and are now calling a new place home just because they were forced to. You have a very unique perspective, I imagine.
Absolutely. I mean, it's an entirely different way of looking at it, because the difference between necessity and when you really need something like that, and when it's like I just want to travel. Because being from Kosovo, for example, it's one of the toughest things was to actually be able to travel with Kosovo passport in the beginning, because it as you said, for some countries, it's really to be privileged. And I do believe that by having the remote work concept all around the world, more people will be able to travel because they'll have the income needed to go to Bali, to go to, Spain, or you name it. Madeira, maybe, beautiful things going on there too. So there's so many places that, you can go. And I believe, I want to just end the war concept here, but I believe that travel ends all wars. So that's why it's another motivation for me is when you go see all people and you actually are able to travel and meet all these wonderful, brilliant people is just amazing. For example, when I first moved to the US, the first state I moved into was Utah. And what are the odds? It's an entirely different, setup. Different, it's you would never imagine US as Utah, and when I first moved in, they started telling me about the state and everything. I had no clue. I just love to go spontaneous. I never really do much research, and I just jump into destinations. And going to Utah in the beginning, I'm like, it was so different for me. It was a big cultural shock. Then I made so many amazing friends there, and it's just to me, that's what travel is about. You go there, you explore, you meet new people. First, it's a shock, but then you just get so familiarized with it that it's like a part of you as well.
Yeah, it is. And it's funny you mentioned Utah. Actually, it's the state that I tell people when somebody asks me all right, I'm going to go to the U.S. and yeah, I'm going to go do L.A. and Vegas and New York, and I got to see Texas because I want to wear a cowboy hat. But where else should I go? And I'm like, and Utah is that place for me. I'm like, it's such an incredibly beautiful place from a natural beauty standpoint, and yeah, I mean, it's off the radar largely, and such a sweet spot to land. If you've never heard of it before, just Google pictures of Utah. You won't be disappointed, I don't think.
Absolutely, and make sure you do some van life out there. That's really something. Imagine by Zion, you open your van and you have that view while you work. Oh my God.
Oh yeah, man. I mean, Angel's Landing, the hike and Zion still remains one of my most incredible experiences in the natural world. Climbing up to the top of this viewpoint that the natives there called Angel's Landing because they imagined only angels could get to the top of it, and it's terrifying. I don't even know if I could do it now. Honestly, I was younger and dumber then. I'm kind of afraid of heights now, I think, and so I'm not sure I could do it now. But it is just one of those places that sort of captivates you. It's cool to hear that coming from someone from somewhere else. Actually, I don't know that I'd ever heard that before.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The U.S. has got one of the best natures ever. I love national parks, and Yellowstone would be another one that I highly recommend to all digital nomads. It's breathtaking.
Yeah, it is. That's what the U.S. has. I mean, when people say I want to go see the cities and stuff, I'm like, go to the nature. The national park system in the U.S. US is insane. And that's like sort of it's not really a hidden gem. I don't think that's correct to say, but it flies a little bit under the radar because people are, normally attracted to the major metropolis hubs and some of the other sites. But I think the natural beauty is where it's at.
Absolutely. And that's why I love like that, the aspect that in the US, like the van life is so, popular, because just going with a van, I've done it several times. I haven't done it in the East Coast yet, but like West Coast, it's definitely one of the best things, like one of the best pictures I've taken. It's from those trips, actually.
That's epic. I love it, man. We could talk about van life. Will have to be another episode because we have a ton to get to today. And that's like something you and I share in common, as well as I'm loving my van life in over here and on this side of the pond. But I would love to dive into that. If you don't mind, I wanted to ask you one more question. Just I probably could spin off into a million different questions, but it seems pertinent, and we can edit this out if you prefer to. That's totally fine. But given the current situation in what's happening in Ukraine and with Russia right now, like, can you kind of explain what your experience was as a refugee in a abbreviated form? The reason I ask that is I have someone close to me who was a refugee from Bosnia during the war there, and he described to me, just kind of quickly, like we've talked about it in depth, but the quick version of his journey involved like fake passports and like really some pretty scary situations, like sleeping in some dangerous places. And like they were a normal family. They owned like a grocery store, they had like a regular life, and to have everything kind of turned upside down was sort of shocking for me. And I think maybe the average everyday person doesn't really have a good idea of like what it means to go through that experience. And I don't want to turn this into an episode about that. We have a bunch of other stuff to get to, but it seems wrong to skip right past that with what's going on right now.
Absolutely. I mean, I was very little when the war happened, and the only thing that I really relate, children who are around the age I was in 1999, is the aspect of everybody who's all of your listeners right now. I'm sure if somebody asks, what is your first memory from your childhood, everybody's going to be like, well, I remember I don't know, seeing my mom and dad in the pool, or I remember walking down their porch or something like that. But for me, my first experiences, like my first memories from my childhood, is the house. Like we had a 3-floor house and it was all burned down. And I remember actually going, after the war. And obviously, I mean, these are just a few, like, but that one is just the one that stuck in my brain so strongly. And that's one of the first memories that I have from my childhood. Then I remember being, just going out of Kosovo. I remember just briefly, it's like a dream basically of, soldiers going into buses and, checking and taking people. And I mean, I don't remember the taking people part of it, but I just remember soldiers going into buses. And, that's why I say, like, I feel so bad about the children that are going through this in Ukraine right now, because for them this is going to define their life, and it is extremely unfortunate. So that's what we went through. And then basically my family went, actually, because after war and everything, my family went back, but then afterwards, just even post-war, that's the thing. It takes 100 years for a country to actually recover from a war. There's still issues going on, like economic and political and cultural and whatnot. So because of that, it's really, I'm sorry, because it's like really emotional aspect of this. Sure. So basically just that would be, I think, something that people could at least imagine, how when you start your life and the first memories are war related, and then you're like, hear about your cousin who was killed, and murdered, basically a civilian, basically, like, and you find their remainings after few years. These are all things that unfortunately they're normal there. People, they're like, yeah, I know another person and another person, another person who has gone through these. So that's how it is right now. And just looking at the news, it kind of gives you flashbacks, I guess, sort of a PTSD on that aspect. I think everybody who went through war has got some sort of PTSD in them, just because of the whole psychological impact.
Yeah, I mean, those things don't melt away easily. Like, people have PTSD from things that are much less severe and that don't leave your psyche for decades or forever. So totally understandable. I hate for you that you have to continue to relive that in some ways, but I think it's great that you shed a little bit of light on it, just to give people maybe a little bit of an understanding of what's happening there. Not that we need more of that. We'll transition back to what we came here to really talk about, which is I know for you a lot more fun and exciting to look forward to. And there's a lot going on this front in the digital nomad world, and you're very deeply involved in the research, the preparation, the background, and the logistics of these digital nomad visas in multiple countries, which is such a cool thing because a lot of people that come on the show or that I talk to and the people that I read about, they're kind of like regurgitating the information that they've seen on the internet. Like, okay, yeah, this is what this digital nomad visa does, or that's what this one does. But you've actually been like behind the scenes working with the governments in multiple countries, building these and figuring out what's important to them and what's not, and how to make them attractive, and consulting with them on this. So I think it's really going to be kind of cool to dive into this. So we discussed this beforehand, and we're going to sort of quickly go over 3 digital nomad visas that you've been involved in: Greece, Dubai, and Albania. And we can take them in any order that you want, but let's just start with one and just kind of go into a little bit of the basics and your experience working with them, and we'll see where it goes.
Absolutely. So this is like one of the most exciting adventures that I've taken in my career, I guess. In the beginning of the pandemic and everything, that's where we started. I mean, I've worked on and off with other governments as well on the digital nomad visas, but these have been the most significant ones that I've had an input. So just starting, I guess I could just start with Dubai here, and because that's been the first one chronologically that started the visa. And so with Dubai to begin with, when we prepared the guidelines, the strategy was, and the biggest question mark was, Dubai is an expensive place to live. And the first thing that we discussed, about Dubai is there is options that make Dubai a relatively, moderate, in the expenses wise place to go live. And that had to go through influencer marketing. This is another, a little behind the scenes information. So I don't know if you've seen, like, Nas Daily had a few videos about Dubai, and especially like how there are options that are like the lifestyle there, that you can have, a meal that does not, really put you in a very tough situation financially. So these have been the first ones, because like how digital nomad visas are built is, the concept is, first you need to analyze the people who are actually going to move there, and to get a better understanding is the decision making. It's one of those marketing concepts of like behavioral psychology, where you're like analyzing and getting a better understanding of your clients, in this case customers, in these government instances. So basically in Dubai, the key aspect, so right now Dubai asks $5,000. You have to make $5,000 a month in order to be able to qualify. Now, this is not a number that they've just thrown out there, but it's a thorough research of how much a person needs to make in order to be able to comfortably live in Dubai. It is debatable, the amount, but that's the final one there. So the $5,000, they ask you to have $5,000 a month. You obviously need to prove that and show your, not just bank, but also if you're a freelancer, your projects or your work or your employer information. And then you obviously need to have insurance, and then the insurance needs to be paid up front. So you need to take care of that right away, when you do the application. And there is I think it's like around $260, $270 now that too many numbers here.
Yeah, too many numbers, too many application fees, taxes. There's a lot rolling around in the head.
So basically, that's the main concept of Dubai. And then the good thing is, depending on where you come from, excluding US and Eritrea, which are the 2 countries that, regardless of where you are, I think you can relate on this one. You have to pay your taxes. You have to pay Uncle Sam. So basically, except these 2, your country might have an agreement with Arab Emirates. So you might end up really paying almost no taxes. So that's another advantage of Dubai. But that was something we did not have to work on. It was already there, because they don't really do taxes there. So
yeah, I actually have for anybody that's like really interested, if you heard no taxes and you're like, what? That sounds awesome. There's an episode from a couple months back with somebody who just recently moved. Her name's Arlie. She just moved from France to Dubai, and she's living tax-free in Dubai. And she actually talks about that a lot, like with the cost of living and stuff, like how it really, we have this in our mind that Dubai is just this like insanely expensive place, and it can be, but she kind of goes into how it doesn't necessarily have to be. And so anyway, yeah, it's kind of insane that this is possible. And it's cool to know, like you mentioned something a second ago. You said like market research, almost like customers, right? And I think that's one of the most fascinating parts about these digital nomad visas, is because like I'm gonna try not to go like too deep and nerdy on all this stuff real quick, but I might. Sorry. The borders were set up for a reason, right? Like borders are there, and we have customs and we have immigration services and stuff to like basically kind of like keep people in and keep people out. And that's been the way of the world for a long time. But now, like suddenly with digital nomad visas and remote work and like all this stuff, countries are like now competing to bring you there. They're like, no. Oh, wait, come in. We want you to come. And actually look how good our visa process is. And they're trying to streamline them. They're trying to make them tax efficient for people. So I just find it kind of like fascinating. Like they are customers. They're people that are going to come and they're going to spend money in your store. Your store just happens to be a country now. And I think it's really interesting to watch this evolve. There's something like 50 or maybe 60 digital nomad visas now, you might know. But I mean, there weren't any a couple years ago, like, or maybe a couple. So yeah, it's just, I don't know. This is really kind of a crazy phenomenon.
I'm glad you brought this up because, for example, now while slowly shifting into Greece, one of the things we've discussed with back then Minister Harry, tourism, that one of the biggest challenges of all these countries is the seasonality. Like you are a summer destination, and in winter everything just I don't want to say shut down, but basically compared to the amount of people you get in the summer, it's comparable. So what digital nomads do is they pretty much help finding this seasonality, because they're going to be there for 12 months. When everybody disappears in winter, you still have those people there. As you said, they go to the grocery store. They go to your local shop. They go to your local cafe and all that. So it makes a huge impact into their economy. And that's why, all these destinations, or at least 50 of them, have realized that this is a great economic opportunity. And this is a great, not just economic, because what we're bringing up with the governments is this is not just about bringing these people for the money aspect of it. What we're trying to do is engage them, for example, with local universities. Chase, imagine a local university. Like there's a lot of things that younger generations, and not that we're old. I'm by no means, I'm not saying that, but people in college or in high school could benefit a lot by just listening to your story, by just if a digital nomad is a programmer, just hearing their perspective and how they came to this to this opportunity of living anywhere is a huge impact to their younger generations as well. Not just that, there's like entrepreneurs that can be, you could do events and you could do networking, which helps the country with investments and everything. So there's so many dimensions to digital nomads that, for every minister that I talk to, we've actually had a conversation with a minister in Gibraltar. Here, I'm sharing here some confidential information, okay?
It's just me and you, man. Don't worry, nobody's listening.
So basically, I'm like, these people are gold, just like gold, pretty much, because they are like, digital nomads are really gold for these destinations, for all the aspects I mentioned, and there's a ton more that I could probably just hijack your whole program here talking about.
Sounds good to me. I'm gonna turn the mic off. You just start talking, and I'll be back in like a couple hours. I just have to say, how cool is it? Like, I want to say one day, like, yeah, I was having a conversation with Minister Harry or whatever. Like, that's your work is not the everyday man's work. That's for sure. And you're like what would you? How do you identify yourself in terms of like profession? Like, are you a researcher? Or are you what's like? Is there a title you would assign to yourself?
Preferably, I just go digital nomad, but like I'm basically an entrepreneur in a sense. But entrepreneur sometimes it sounds fancy, I guess, and I like to keep myself. I'm just a digital nomad, doing the thing I love to do. Just this is what I love to do. Have conversations with other digital nomads who have the same mindset, and that's what I go for. I honestly have not. Obviously, I want to make money. That's everybody does.
Yeah.
But like the thing is, to me, money is a tool for you to achieve, things you like to do. And what I like to do is working with digital nomads on remote work and these things. That's why I've really expanded a lot. Sometimes like I sleep like 4 or 5 hours a day just to be able to catch up on everything. But when it's a passion, you don't see it as work, just I mean, look at you. You just said like you're gonna take trips and everything, and you're still planning on like I want to have this interview and that interview because you love what you do.
Yeah, it's just fun. I mean, you can't. There's like it's a old like cliche, but if you just love what you're doing, then you don't feel like you're working. So, and that's a great thing to be able to say. I mean, it feels amazing. We'll be right back to the show after a quick break for a note from our sponsor. This season is brought to you by my good friends over at Insured Nomads. They're the absolute best in the business when it comes to providing health, travel, and medical insurance for nomads, expats, and really just all forms of world travelers. I know insurance is often something that's overlooked when we're fantasizing about traveling the world, but it's absolutely necessity that we address this because often the policy you have in your home country isn't going to cover you while you're abroad. And it's also a requirement, as a lot of people may not realize, to actually buy private travel or expat insurance, as it's called sometimes, to obtain a visa or even enter certain countries. So fortunately, there are companies like Insured Nomads to help us with this. Not only do they have excellent coverage and great prices, but they're also providing a first-class experience with additional perks and best-in-class technology via their app. It's an amazing experience. I can't recommend it enough. Now, this is a company that was built by world travelers for world travelers. So they know what it's like to find yourself in a difficult medical situation abroad, and they want to keep you from having that same bad experience. So the next time you're planning a trip abroad, whether it's for a week or a lifetime, check out Insured Nomads via the link in the show notes. Hey guys, if you're still around and enjoying this episode, then I think you might actually like our once a month newsletter as well. If you'd like to sign up, just open up the show notes of the episode you're currently listening to, scroll down, and look for aboutabroad.com/newsletter. It takes about 30 seconds to sign up. It's a fantastic way to support the show, and I think you'll be pleased with the information that we provide every month as well. Thanks a lot for listening. Hope you enjoy the rest of the episode. I just think what I find really interesting about your story though is that like you do have this kind of researcher's mentality. I mean, like there's like when you talk about digital nomad visas, it can just, you just look at it on the surface level. It's like, cool, this gives me the access to live in Bermuda for the next 6 months. And like, it just, nobody thinks about the mechanics of how these things are built, the market research going into it and thinking about digital nomads as gold and the type of investment they can bring in, and like Dubai settling on $5,000. And that number just didn't come out of nowhere. This stuff comes from somewhere, and there are real humans behind the scenes, at least for now, until the robots take over, that have to create this stuff, right? And so I don't know. It's again like another really unique perspective. And I sidetracked us there with that. I'm sorry. We started to get into Greece, which I think is going to be, my personal opinion, I think this is going to be like one of the top destinations to go for digital nomads. And not just digital nomads. I think like I don't consider myself very nomadic anymore. I'm pretty like stationary. I travel a handful of months a year, but I'm kind of got like a home base. And like, I think people that fall into that category are going to be very intrigued by the program that Greece has put together. It's obviously a very sexy destination. It's a place people know. Kind of reminds me of like what Portugal is right now. Like Portugal is currently that like top spot, and Greece has sort of come in, talk about like competing for customers, right? Like they've come in with this like pretty awesome offer. They're still trying to figure it all out. I'm going to get you to talk us into some details here in a second, but like they came in with like, I think there's like a 20% flat tax and things like this that just make it very attractive to an already very attractive destination. So what can you tell us about the Greece digital nomad situation?
So one of the first things I want to talk about is I've blamed politicians a lot about many things before actually working with government, but seeing all the bureaucracy behind it and everything, and like you end up appreciating all the hard work that some people put, but there's a process to it, and that's what Greece has fallen into, and that's why like I really love what Jan did in Croatia, because a lot of people just see it like, oh, in 6 weeks they were able to push that forward, but that's actually a huge miracle. Like that's something so hard to do that it's just
What happened in Croatia? I don't know. Like, I mean, I know they have the Croatia digital nomad visa. It's actually like one of my most popular episodes ever is talking. There's an episode on this big back into a couple seasons. People are obsessed with this, but I don't know the backstory behind like this miracle that happened.
So basically, within 6 weeks, they were able to pass the law and have everything set for the digital nomad. In 6 weeks, the parliament passed, the alien law, and everything was set. And then obviously it was just passed into the Minister of Interior Affairs to prepare the the residency permit, and everything, all the administrative work. But the core is that law, So Greece also passed the law and everything, and they have pretty much the thing with Greece right now is the visa is within the I think it's D visa, and then basically that includes a residency permit. It's not like a separate per se like a digital nomad visa. However, it kind of is like a subcategory of an actual visa that you get. Roughly, that the amount of money they require you to have is 3,500, and there is still work being done on that direction to kind of formalize it a little bit more, and hopefully throughout my guidelines it was clearly stated that it should be a separate digital nomad visa, because there's for example, I just want to just reference to Albania that we're working on. They have a loophole for you as a digital nomad to go there. However, in marketing aspect, what example can I give? Like take a grocery store that actually sells clothes too, you don't go there for the clothes because they have not told you that they have. So because of that, I mean, I always push for the concept of you need to tell people that you have the digital nomad visa, because when you tell them that, they know that that's actually there. It's not vague, ambiguous thing. It's clear. So that's the thing that Greece is working on, and hopefully they can sort that out, because once you have it separate, it helps much more. So for now, people can actually apply and go there if you're making 3,500 euros and you can prove that.
3,500 euros per month?
Yes. And I'm sorry, I'm just like, I assume, we're working on these and having conversations on a daily basis. You come to a level where you're like, you just assume like, how don't you know? You should know this. So that's why forgive my.
Yeah, it becomes like a second language that you just speak, and so I imagine that it just and it all starts to blur together too when you start looking at a bunch of different visas. But no, please continue.
So basically, and then it's as of now, you get half of your, like, you pay half a tax. That's what the concept was in Greece, and still the current government, like, it's the same government that was there, but the Minister of Tourism changed a few months ago, and basically they're doing some, like, Marketing Greece is doing some amazing campaign and marketing wise to promote Greece as a spot to go. But like, to me, as you said, Greece really does not need much marketing as a destination. It's more about the community. It's more about Madeira style. It's more about that concept that Greece needs to build. And because, like, compared to Dubai, you can easily get into Greece with your income. It's way lower bracket, and plus your expenses in Greece are not going to be as high, especially if you go, which I highly recommend, not to go to, like, Santorini or all the.
Don't go to the honeymoon destinations. I did my honeymoon. I did all those for my honeymoon. So I'm gonna just go ahead and put myself out there. I totally did the tourist thing and hit Santorini and Mykonos and all that. But yeah, you're 100% right. Like, go to the other destinations where you can actually afford to live and live well.
And most importantly, engage with the local community. That's to me, it's the best thing is that, and when you go to touristy places, people are not as friendly and as welcoming. I mean, for obvious reasons. I'm not blaming them, but like, when you go to, like, a smaller community, go to a little town that's not much used to tourists, that's a very unique experience. Like, there you get to know the actual Greece. There you get to know the actual population, the actual people, and the culture and everything. And to me, that's just the best thing of being a digital nomad.
Yeah. Is there anywhere in Greece you've been to that you would recommend, like, that kind of fits that criteria that pops in your mind?
There are a few, like Kalamata, for example, is trying to build something there. But, like, I mean, the thing is, that's the thing that Greece needs to work on, is to focus on one specific location. There are a few of them that are, like, decent size of, expat community and everything. For example, there's some work being done in Crete, but that's also another destination that's kind of, everybody knows about it. But Kalamata, I think, is pretty good. And then obviously the north of Greece, so by Thessaloniki and everything, like, they have little towns there that I highly recommend, because it's always nice to be a little closer to a bigger city, but, like, just in 1 hour distance. But it would not, honestly, I don't want to, because if I say one of the names, then I'm gonna not do justice to the other ones, because, like, there's probably like 5 to 10 of them which are considering right now, and they're trying to build in local government level. They're trying to build strategies and to promote digital nomads, and we're actually hoping to help them also on promote their local destinations. But as of now, I'd say there's a lot to be to work on in Greece, I think. so that you bring that community, because we love
That's
community
it.
as digital nomads.
I mean that's you mentioned it earlier. You referenced it, Madeira, but like Madeira is the coast of island off the coast of Portugal, really off the coast of Africa, I guess, but a Portuguese island that sure people knew about Madeira a couple years ago, but now it's like this international destination where nomads are flocking to from all over, and it's got. And I mean the revenue that's generating in the tens and tens of millions for the local government is crazy. And so replicating that, like what they did was they created community there. I mean, they created a place where people want to go and hang out with other like-minded people in a beautiful location. And maybe Greece's challenge is that they have too many locations that could fit that criteria. Like, hundreds of islands, beautiful coastline, tons of history. Like, where do you choose to put that? And so that might be their challenge, like a bit of a double-edged sword there. But I think it's like it's going to become a very attractive destination in this next phase, as more people get access to the digital nomad life, remote work on the rise, people taking their families nomadic a little bit more, or even just the opportunity that maybe you're not going to go live on the road, but you're going to go spend 3 to 6 months working from somewhere. That sounds like a very good destination. And I think, yeah, you're right. If they can just build a little bit of community in some place, then that could be the tipping point. I've heard good things. I haven't been there. You mentioned Crete, and I don't know how to pronounce the name. Shania or Shania. It's on the north side of the island. I think it's spelled Chanai.
Oh, Kanya, exactly. Kanya, exactly.
Yeah, I've heard good things about this place. It kind of like reminds me of a Ericeira in Portugal or something like that. I don't know if you've been there or not, but it seems like a sweet spot.
Yeah, no, I have not been personally, but I've had like there's cool workspaces there and some and co-living spaces. They're doing some amazing work there. Exactly, like it's a beautiful place. And then I just am not very knowledgeable about Greek mythology, but it's one of those places that is full of mythology, monuments and stories. And if somebody is into mythology, I highly recommend. You just live in paradise if you go to Hanya.
Oh yeah, you can't beat it. I mean, with the history and the food, and you said it, like mythology, the people. Now you got a thriving digital nomad community coming through. It's going to be awesome. Are there any other bullet points we should touch on for somebody? People can go find all the information that they want, but I mean, any other major bullet points that they should be aware of? Like most digital nomad visas, you need to have an income coming in from somewhere else. It needs to be 3,500 euros a month, more or less. It sounds like you get a year to stay, I believe. Anything else that people should know off the major bullet points?
Well, pretty much. I've seen this a lot where people when they start this application process, they feel a little bit frustrated sometimes because of the process and of things that are required and everything. So I would say this is more of a general thing. I believe every time I have something to do with government, it's like try to have a list of things that you need. Basically, let's say you are a freelancer, so make sure you have all the documents related to your company, because basically you're supposed to be registered. Even if you do 1099 or whatever, you need to have an address outside of that country of Greece, which in this case, let's say you're from the US. Make sure to have more documents that they ask. Not just in Greece, but in every destination. I highly recommend everyone to provide more than they require, and then you just show them that, because it is very important. Because like I've seen so many people just get frustrated about it, and then I hear people like, I mean, they've asked this, and that, and it gets frustrated. I understand, but like just there is certain regulations that they go through. So if you are especially a freelancer, life is much easier, unfortunately, because I really have been working especially on the labor laws, so that we can have a world where corporate workers, can actually go and become digital nomads as well. So that's, stay tuned, guys. Whoever's listening and working on, larger corporation, and they're not letting us go out of the country. There is some work being done in that direction, and hopefully we can have more specifics soon.
Man, that's going to be an amazing thing, because you're right. That is something that holds a lot of people back. The difference between being like in the US, it's 1099 or W-2, and in other countries, in Spain, it's autonomo. It's like the equivalent of that. So yeah, this changes things. Is basically the way you're paid can limit you. So that we've covered two of the three. The third one that we wanted to get to was Albania, which is a very much so an up and coming place. I think I've not visited Albania, so I know very little, but it's on the rise.
So yeah, I mean, they are in the very beginning of the entire process, and we've had a meeting with the prime minister. They've had a whole process of inviting new ideas and innovation, and we've pitched the concept of digital nomads and remote workers to be able to go there, because first of all, it's very strategically located. If you're in South Albania, you can take a boat and in 2 hours you are in Italy. So it's right there, like it's just wonderful place. And then you have the Adriatic Sea, and then you have the Ionian in the south. It's just seeing that division of the sea is just beautiful. There's so many amazing stuff there. You can actually right now, if you're a digital nomad and you're like, can I go right now? Yes, you can, even though they don't have the digital nomad visa. Again, as I said, they have a loophole there. You can apply for a residency permit and they issue it as long as you can provide specific income, and they don't have any specifics as to what they require. However, if you're making at least, $1,500, you should be good, because, the average income there is pretty low. So if you're making more than 1,500 US dollars, you will get 99.9%, you will get approved. They don't really have any strict requirements there. It's because it's a country in development. But I would highly recommend people to, if you're already a digital nomad, if you already have the experience, I'd say go check it out. I would highly recommend to, people to go first like 3 months, because as a long-term place, I really do believe that they need to do a lot of work, and that's what we're working on. They need to bring, again, community. Because for me personally, I go as a digital nomad. I'm like, would you stay at a destination if you don't really have people to engage with, and like, if you don't have someone to talk like we're talking right now, to me, it's just like after 2 months, it kind of starts getting boring. But as to see places, it's just beautiful out there, and not much required to get the visa. So if you really like, I want to try something totally different that I have not been to, it's a totally different culture. Although it's in Europe, it's pretty different from like the other countries around there. So I highly recommend. Like majority of Italians are right there during the summer because it's cheaper, and the water and everything is the beach is the same. So
Italian coastline for Albanian prices.
Pretty much. Exactly. I love the way you put it. Exactly.
It's outside the Shenzhen, right? Like you can,
yes.
It can kind of a visa hopping place. So if you're in the Shenzhen and you spent 3 months in there and you want to hop into another place and get out, and reset your visa for 3 months, that can be a really nice option. Geographically easily to access, affordable. The digital nomad visa is available for longer term stays. I actually met a couple that was RVing around Europe for over 2 years. And we met them on a ferry we were both doing a visa hop before I had like permanent residency in Europe. I was doing like visa hops, like 3 months in the Shenzhen, 3 months out. And we were doing a ferry from France to Ireland, because a lot of people, I don't think, know that Ireland can be a step outside the Shenzhen, although it's in the EU, it's outside the Shenzhen. So you can go spend 3 months in Ireland and then come back to into the Shenzhen, and you have reset your visa. So anyway, we were both doing that, and they had been traveling around in an RV around Europe for over 2 years, and their favorite country was Albania. All that they had seen, they loved Albania. They were raving about it.
It's really good. It's really, because the beauty of Albania is the fact that it's still not developed, like especially the southern part. It's so natural. Like you don't have like all these buildings and everything, especially like there's these tiny beaches that it's almost like, to me, it just gives like a feeling of Thailand, or like it's very, like you don't see anything around you. Like it's a tough drive, I'll tell you that, but like once you get there, it's just gorgeous, like, and I love that aspect of like they have not built that, and I don't want to jinx it, I hope they don't build anything there. That natural feeling of it is just amazing.
Oh man, yeah, it's that continues to rise on my list. There's too many places in the world I want to see, and I keep like every time I hear about one, I'm like, okay, that's moving up the list. That Albania's Albania is moving back up the list for me.
And it's really popular with the people who are doing, the, I want to call it yacht life, because that's another thing, like that I really want to do. It's in my bucket list. I want to do like a few months of, you're on a yacht or in a, not, I don't want, I would not go for cruise. I don't know why. I'd rather have like thing of my own. You just, especially that part, like you go to Albania and then you go to Italy, and then just right there you have the Italian, the Greek island of, what I forget the name right now.
Corfu?
Corfu, exactly. There you go. So you have Corfu there, and like that's the beauty of Europe, actually. Like within, very short distance, you're in 3 different countries with food and everything. It's just beautiful.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I'm obsessed with that aspect of Europe, and it never gets old for me. Like I think especially coming from the US, and just, we have our own form of diversity, but it's such a massive piece of land where, we're all pretty much speaking the same language, and there's some distinct food and stuff. But like to go from, Italy to Austria, for instance, like you just changed worlds completely, and you could drive 20 minutes. And it's just that always, I met someone the other day. I was out with a friend, and we were sitting next to another couple, and like didn't really understand what language they were speaking. And we asked them, and she was like, yeah, I'm from a little area in the north of Italy, but we speak this mix of like German and Italian. And I was like, so what do you call your first language? Tyrol. Yeah.
Yeah, Southern Tyrol.
Yeah, exactly. So it was like this mix of the two, and it was like a German-Italian mix. And I was like, so which one's the first language? She's like, I don't know. It really is just a mix of the two. And that's mind-blowing. Like I have so many questions.
And I speak Italian, so that's why like I've actually met one girl from Tyrol in New York, and we talked about these nuances of the accent there. It's I just, you see, that's the beauty of traveling. You meet all these people and see all these, get to understand all these cultures. It's just amazing because like their nuances, like when you speak like multiple languages, like you realize how the approach of people, like for example, if I'm not mistaken, I think like in Spanish, like bridge is a feminine word, but then in German is masculine. So like when a person describes a bridge in Spanish, they describe it as beautiful and gorgeous and all that. But in German, it would be like a strong, stable, and just because it's masculine. Even this detail of nuances just makes it worth to go as digital nomad and go explore all these languages and all these places.
I mean, that's what it turns like the mundane conversation about like, I don't need to talk about a bridge too much, but then all of a sudden you throw that in there and I'm like, what? Oh, I never thought about that. Like now we could talk about bridges all day, because how do they say it in French? And so, yeah, I mean, I'm also very, very fascinated by this. Okay, yeah. So we've nerded out on Europe quite a bit here, and I feel like we could continue to go down this path for a lot longer. But
this rabbit hole,
it's a big rabbit hole, and there's like a ton to talk about. But I'm glad we hit on some of the different digital nomad visas and some of our shared love for what Europe has to offer. What I would love to quickly transition to is a little bit of what you're doing in the US, which is equally as fascinating, I think, and is related to the Digital Nomad Expo and all that you're doing with the Digital Nomad Association. Give us a little background on what you're doing there, and we'll see where it takes us.
Absolutely. So first of all, the Digital Nomad Association, like, when this digital nomad concept, since it is a passion, and like whoever I've met is so deep into this concept that it's like really deeply, I think, enshrined into our personality of being remote. And because of that, I seeing all these friends of mine, like, how do you do it? How do I start remote and everything? And the entire community, especially in the United States, wanted to start the Digital Nomad Association for 2 reasons. Reason number one, like in Europe, seems like a lot of, like the majority of digital nomads are very well connected. But in the US, it's a little more spread out, a little more individualistic, I want to say. And then another factor to it is like the loneliness for digital nomads. It's a big thing. So the Digital Nomad Association started with the concept of, number one, to bring together the digital nomads, especially ones within the US or from the US or have anything related to the United States. And the second reason is to have the digital nomads help and support the other ones who are actually hoping and working towards becoming remote workers. And just by getting it started, I've had so many digital nomads tell me, like, and reach out and say, whatever I can do, I'd love to help. That makes me feel so happy about the community we're a part of, because everybody is willing to share whatever they know so that they can be the reason that another person becomes location free and can actually enjoy life. So that is what we're trying to do with Digital Nomad Association. We're right in the beginning of it, and because we started the expo as if we're not, doing, a lot of work, but we just love what we do. And then so we've slowed down the association concept. We're trying to, just frame it in the right way so that we can be as much beneficial and useful to people as we can. And then we're doing the Digital Nomad Expo. That is going to be the first event that's going to bring the destinations into one virtual event. This year is going to be virtual. Next year, another confidential information. Next year, we already have demands from destinations and to make it hybrid, and it's crazy. So much demand. I feel thrilled. I feel honored on it. So we're doing the Digital Nomad Expo. We're bringing the destinations into one place. For all of you who are listening, you'll get a chance to get even more detailed information from the destinations, talk to them directly, ask questions to the representatives out there, and get all the up-to-date information in the expo. And we're also getting startups in there, because I come from a background that we've worked a lot with startups. So we're going to bring some amazing apps, amazing ideas that are out there, who are going to be there for people who are willing to become digital nomads, or there are digital nomads that they could benefit from. Just some amazing work digital nomads are doing. I love it.
Oh man, that's so cool. So you're building out this infrastructure for the association is one thing, the expo is a separate thing, but the association is essentially a way to unite digital nomads from the US and help support them, help give resources, things like that. And then the expo is a separate actual event that will take place at a given time and date, which we should mention, and we'll bring those people together virtually this year, but in a physical sense in the years to come.
Absolutely. Correct? So September 6, 7 is going to be the date for the expo, and you put it way better than I am. So I've been in the backstage for the longest time. I'm just recently coming out of my out of the box, I guess, and basically you put it even better than I did. You should help us out on this.
Hopefully I am in my own little way here with this, because it's awesome. I love what you're doing. I mean, you're right. There is a bit more cohesion internationally. It's funny because like Americans we're everywhere. I mean, we're a big country. We have 330 million people. A lot of people. There's great fortune that a lot of people have the ability from the US to work remotely already and have been traveling and digital nomading and stuff for a long time. But there is there does seem to be like a tighter cohesion sort of when you're outside the US, when you're traveling around, when you're in Southeast Asia, you find that community in Bali or in Thailand or wherever. And when in Europe, it also feels that way. So I see exactly what you're trying to do by sort of uniting those people that are actually there in the US and making the US sort of a digital nomad place to be, because it has so much to offer. But I don't think it's thought of that way exactly necessarily. I mean, some people are digital nomads, they don't even know it. They travel around a lot. I was kind of that. Like, honestly, I was traveling around the US a lot and taking my laptop with me for years. And I didn't think about the term digital nomad at all. I just thought I was just traveling around and working from a laptop in a coffee shop every now and then. And then when I started going abroad, I started learning more about that, But anyway, it is a destination that's almost weird to say, like kind of under the radar in that scene.
Absolutely. I mean, that's kind of the goal, like with the Americans especially, because there is so much that they can share, and there's so much that people can benefit from the stories. Like, we're trying to build one story per each country, because I'm pretty sure we can find an American in each destination. And that's why it's like trying to do a little blog in the association where we can tell all these stories, from Greece, from Croatia, from Switzerland, from Spain, but just basically having all these, I think it's really empowering for the people who are trying to go remote. And I believe that it's for the good of the entire work, pretty much the work industry just in general, because once you have a lot of people in remote, and the competition and the employers are going to need to do more in order to get people to hire them. This goes along with the Great Resignation and everything. So that's my ultimate goal out there, and I'm trying my best to be able to, not just me, like we have an amazing team that is volunteering. We're all volunteering on the association so that we could have an impact.
Well, good for you for stepping out. You've been kind of like behind the scenes building a lot of the framework for a long time, and it's great to see you stepping out into the public a little bit more, sharing your story, how that ties together with your work and what you're doing on multiple continents. It's been a lot of fun to watch the mechanics of it come together, and now to hear a little bit more and take a peek behind the curtain has been really fun for me, and I imagine for the audience as well. So thank you for sharing. Thanks for all the work that you're doing. I love it. I'm forward to following along. And it would be awesome if you could just share a couple links that, or wherever, you want people to go that need to follow along to learn more about the Expo, the association, any work that you're doing. Let us know here. We'll put those in the show notes as well.
So one thing I want to mention is with the Digital Nomad Expo, especially for everyone, this is an important information, but especially for the people who are trying to, take that step to become a digital nomad, but they're like, financially, how can I make it and everything? We are taking 2 of our attendees to the destination that wins the most vote for free for 7 days. So the flight's paid and the hotel. So, join us, and you never know. You might be the person who actually gets the chance to take their first trip, or maybe it's their 100th trip. I don't know. But that's one thing I want to bring in, because I wish somebody wins that never traveled abroad or something. It would be a great chance to explore and everything. And as in regards to links, they could always, I'm pretty active on LinkedIn mainly. That's where I'm going to share the majority of things. So dn-expo.com is the website for the expo. You'll have all the information there. And for the association, pretty much it's DNA USA. However, we're just taking that a little slower because we're trying to grow it simultaneously with the expo. So probably we're going to go more active by the end of summer, and then when the expo starts, because we just find it a little more strategically correct to do that.
I get it. Well, I love it. Thank you again. I appreciate you sharing the time and the stories and all the work that you're doing behind the scenes. Keep bringing it to the surface and to the public. It's awesome. A lot of fun to watch.
Well, thank you so much, Chase. It's you are one of the most important industry leaders, I want to say, digital nomad leaders, and it's been such a pleasure to follow all your work. And what you're doing is it's so important that it's hard to put in words. So really appreciate you, and I'm sure all of your listeners also appreciate your hard work and information that you share with everyone.
That's the kindest thing you could say. I appreciate it. It's as we said earlier, like, it doesn't even feel like work. I'm lucky that it's become my work. I just thoroughly enjoy it. I love that this is becoming so accessible to the world, and people are getting the chance to see more of it, enjoy, and live a little bit freer. So it's funny, we started this conversation talking a little bit about freedom, and we end there as well. But yeah, thoroughly enjoyed this, man. Thank you again, and we'll be in touch for sure.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for tuning in today from wherever you are in the world. Once again, I'm Chase, and this has been another episode of About Abroad. For those of you wondering how you can best support the show, I have made it super simple for you. Just go over to the show notes of the episode that you just finished listening to and click on one of the 2 following links. aboutabroad.com/newsletter to get our monthly newsletter, no spam, guaranteed, or ratethispodcast.com/aboutabroad, where you can quickly and easily leave a review for the show. It's not just important to me, it also helps more wanderers just like you find us. Finally, don't forget to subscribe on your podcast platform of choice, and we will see you again next week. Thanks again. Hasta luego, amigos.